Now, this is, as we've been discussing, a huge moment for the Labour government. And of course, their political opponents were watching their every move. Not just the Conservatives, but in many places these days, of course, the challenger is Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Reform are pushing for full nationalisation of the Scunthorpe plant, now pointing the finger at the government's environmental policies for putting the industry in peril. Well, as we approach the local elections in England in a few weeks' time, the party's leader, Mr Farage, is with us live this morning. It's good to have you with us in the studio. Now, you're a right-wing politician, former city trader, and here you are backing nationalisation. It's a bit strange, isn't it?
I worked for 22 years in the metals industry, and I've watched many of the firms that I used to deal with all around the United Kingdom close and disappear over the last 15 years or so. Vote blue, go green. That's what Cameron told us in 2010. Well, that's exactly what we've done. We've followed net zero policies. We've got the most expensive industrial electricity prices in the world, which gives us a massive competitive disadvantage. And it just seemed to me, at the moment Port Talbot closed down, I thought maybe the Labour government would act. They didn't. And I went to Scunthorpe on Tuesday with my colleague Richard Tice. And when I realised there was literally 3 working days left to save primary steelmaking, it seemed to me that nationalisation was the right thing to do because Jingay clearly are a bad actor.
But it's important to say to people, though, Port Talbot hasn't closed. There was a deal to keep that going. No, and in January 2023...
I'm sorry. Let's stick on the electric arc furnaces there will never be switched on.
Well, many people would disagree with that, but let's stick on what you're in principle backing for Scunthorpe being nationalised, because in January 2023, you go back then, and at that point you were saying, well, why should government bail it out? British steel should never have been sold to the Chinese in the first place.
That's the point. That is the point. At that moment in time, the Conservative Party under Boris Johnson were pro-China. They effectively gave a strategic industry to a foreign government, and I was vigorously opposed to it. I wanted somebody else to buy British steel, and there were other bids. The Johnson government did have other bids, but they chose China. So I wanted somebody else to step in.
Well, other people actually have told us that Jingay was the only realistic bidder. But how much would your plan to nationalise it now, how much would that actually cost the taxpayer? Because I know you've put out there, you don't know.
We don't know because we can't trust Jingay's figures. They haven't had proper audited accounts since 2021. They clearly were artificially inflating the losses because they wanted to close down steel production in Britain. This is a big strategic decision by the CCP.
So you're accusing them of lying about the numbers?
Yes, absolutely.
What's your evidence?
Lying about everything. Lying about everything. Look, I am pleased that the government have acted. I do wonder if Tice and I had not been there on Tuesday, whether they would have done, but they have, and there's a reprieve. Clearly, it's going to have to be a full nationalisation within the next couple of weeks, and that then buys us time. We need a complete rethink, not just about British steel, but about British industry. We are living through an industrial massacre where we're seeing refining, we're seeing aluminium. By the way, we no longer produce any aluminium in Britain.
Just to stick on
and so we need to have a completely different energy policy.
But you've made a serious accusation about a big Chinese company, Jingay. What is your evidence that they have been lying about the figures? And you say lying about everything. What's your actual evidence for that?
Well, you can call it intuition if you like, but why do you think that yesterday morning the trade unions acted to stop the Chinese officials even getting their cars into the plant because they feared industrial sabotage?
But hang on, you're making an accusation of lying based on your own intuition. You're making a serious accusation to a private company, to a major Chinese corporation, which of course has links to the Chinese government, because we know Chinese government companies do.
There is no such thing as any private company in China. That isn't how it works.
And we know, of course, that they are linked to the Chinese government. We know that. But I ask you again, what is your evidence for making such an accusation? Because would a serious politician say, it's my intuition that they're lying?
I am 100% certain they bought British Steel to close British Steel.
If you get your wish and get full nationalisation, and you see the cost run from 1 billion to 2 billion to 3 billion to 4 billion and up and up and up, would there be any upper limit at which point you go, oh, actually, this wasn't a good idea?
There's absolutely no reason why we can't manufacture steel. There's no reason why we can't manufacture aluminium, produce aluminium. There's no reason why we can't do refining. There's no reason why we can't do any of these things.
That's not the question. The question here is, you're saying to taxpayers today, I think we should absolutely right now nationalise this industry. And people might agree with that, they might disagree with it.
To save the industry.
To save the industry. You believe that to be the case.
What's left of it?
My question is there an upper limit, a cheque so big that Nigel Farage would not be willing to sign it?
We're doing this. This should be but a pause in a much bigger debate than steel. And I'm coming back to the point. We have, through the net zero obsession put into law by the last government, being carried out by this government until the last couple of weeks, we have to completely rethink energy and rethink our industrial strategy, and this is but a part of that.
OK, well, there are various reasons why the UK energy price is so high, but it is, as you suggest, a factor.
We don't produce it.
Let's move on then to other issues, because it's a while since we've had the chance to speak to you. Your friend Donald Trump is trying to push Russia to agree a ceasefire with Ukraine. Now, you said both sides should have to make concessions. What concessions should President Zelensky make?
Well, we don't know what's been said behind closed doors. I mean, look, the fact that peace is being discussed is a good thing. However, it would appear that Russia are completely uncompromising in every way. And so the war continues. At least Trump is trying for peace.
But what concessions should Zelensky have to make? Because you've said previously on the record, he should have to make concessions. You've also told people that he was rude in the Oval Office and that he should have worn a suit.
Well, look, you know, if you go and meet somebody, you know, you make your own decision how you dress and what you do. Having two of them round on him didn't look very pretty. I understand all of that. But the real point here is both sides have to make concessions. I'm not going to say what I think should be in those concessions. Clearly, at the heart of it is Crimea.
So you think that Ukraine should be willing to compromise on Crimea?
That's at the heart of it. Well, you know what? This is an attritional war. Something like 1 million battle casualties so far. Either it goes on for year after year after year, or there is a deal. But what are Russia prepared to give? And at the moment, it seems like very little.
So you think that President Zelensky in Ukraine should be willing to concede on Crimea?
I think the Russians have to make concessions too. Let's see what they are.
But that's what you're suggesting.
I'm not going to set the terms for a peace agreement. I'm pleased people are talking. OK.
Well, we'll be hearing from the Russian ambassador to the UK, Andrew Kellan, a bit later in the programme. I want to talk about the local elections, because I know Reform is very hopeful that this could be a big breakthrough moment for you. But we want to ask how you would run local government if you managed to capture any
The fact we're even
councils.
discussing that's remarkable, isn't it?
Well, councils have been strapped for cash for a long, long time.
I know.
We know that. And there are many issues. Let's look at a couple of them. There's already an overspend of £3 billion for children with special needs. Councils aren't able to give people the help that they need. They haven't got enough money to meet it. So if Reform was to be running any council, would you increase council tax or would you cut back services even further?
I'm really thrilled that the BBC are discussing what happens when we win county council elections, which is a pretty remarkable conversation we're having. So thank you. I've looked at the numbers. We did thousands of FOI requests to have a look at where money was being spent. I'm going to say this. We probably need a Doge for every single county council in England.
Like
just
Elon Musk
looking.
slashing bureau.
Yeah, I mean, quite why Lancashire County Council spent £500,000 on ergonomic chairs for their staff, I don't know. Quite why up to a third of council staff almost never come to the office, I don't know. So, by the way, I do accept that with social care, with SEND children, with less money from central government, I do accept that it's been very tough for county councils.
And actually, if you look at the numbers...
The culture hasn't changed within them.
But culture is one thing. Hard costs and hard cash is another. And if you look properly at how local councils spend their money, nearly 80% of it is on education, police, children and adults, social care. And the vast majority of it does not go on things like ergonomic chairs in the office. There are serious shortages. So I'd ask you again, if you manage to take control of councils, any council around the country, on principle, would you raise council tax or would you just look to cut back services still further?
Not cutting back services, cutting back the excess and increasing the productivity of staff. One of the biggest problems in this country is the lack of productivity in our public sector. Private sector too, but public sector in particular. And the whole work from home culture, all that needs to go. There are a lot of people working for these councils earning more money than the Prime Minister and not delivering. But
if you look at how councils actually spend their money, the vast majority is not on admin costs or other places where you might be able to make efficiencies. Perhaps you might be able to do that, but the vast majority is spent on services on which our viewers rely. So I'll give it another try.
I tell you what, I'm very concerned. I mean, take potholes, for example, another massive area for local government. There's new technology on the market that can mend potholes far more cheaply, far more quickly, and yet we see councils tied in to all sorts of long-term contracts with inferior providers. The whole thing needs a fresh pair of eyes.
OK, when we last met, you told us Elon Musk made you look cool when we talked on this Saturday. Later in the day, this is what he said on social media. I don't want to, intrude on private grief, but he said that you weren't really up to the job.
Fine.
I just wondered, did he say sorry for making you look a bit daft?
We have spoken since.
Did he say sorry?
Do you know what? He has been attacking half of Trump's cabinet this week. Elon says what he wants to say at any moment in time.
OK, well, Nigel
What I will say is, though, as far as many young people are concerned in Britain, we're certainly cooler than the other parties.
But did he say anything to you about what he said on social media?
We talked about it.
What did he say?
Oh, he was just trying to encourage me in a few policy areas. Ones I wasn't prepared to go down.
OK. Well, Nigel Farage, thank you very much for coming in. It's great to have you with us live in the studio on a Sunday morning. Thank you.